Hey everyone, Nadine here. Thank you for joining me again on my family wellbeing journey. As you probably saw on the last video, Tracy and I discussed the next clip I'll be watching, which is parenting strategies. So let's have a look at this clip and then we can discuss after what we think about the clip we've seen.
People often get frustrated with themselves when they can't seem to use what they know. So we know that it's important to exercise, to sleep, to have a good diet, and yet we have all sorts of barriers when we try to put those things in place. Daniel Siegel came up with something called the hand model of the brain, and it's a way of understanding kind of how the brain works in the face of stressors, which can help us understand what gets in our way. So think of the forearm as the spinal cord. So that's where all of the information comes into the brain, and the palm of the hand is old brain. So that's the part of the brain that's responsible for our heart rate, our breathing, our blood pressure, all these things we never even think about. So that part of the brain is like the hypothalamus and the pituitary. Our thumb is the memory and emotion part of our brain. So that's the hippocampus and the limbic system. So the first thing to notice is that the two of these things are connected. So that means that when I remember something that was positive from my past, it makes me go, and when I remember something that was really difficult or stressful, then I tense up and my heart rate goes up and my breathing changes. Now the fingers are new brain. So that's the part of the brain that's responsible for problem solving and abstract thinking and integrating information. So when things are good, when we're feeling safe and settled, then this is how it's all coming together. The new brain is wrapped around the old brain. So that means we're always interpreting the present through the lens of our past. So what does this mean? Well, let's put it in an example. Let's say I was attacked by a dog as a child. Then when I'm like this, when I'm feeling all settled and connected and I'm feeling safe, then I know that the dog that my kids are playing with is not the dog that attacked me, and I'm fine. But if that dog does anything at all that reminds me or triggers me to the memory of what happened to me, then I'm much more likely to flip my lid. And I'm going to start interacting with that dog as if it's the dog that hurt me. And my rational thinking part of the brain isn't online anymore. Although I could probably still tell you that's not the same dog, it would be really difficult to convince me, because that rational thinking part is not connected, remember, not to swoop up my kids and get the heck out of Dodge. The next time you're having a hard time implementing something that you know, or you're finding that you're getting stressed out by things, there's a couple of things to do. One is be curious about where the stressor is coming from, because every stressor has a history. So if I wasn't attacked by a dog, then I wouldn't have that same stressor. If I learned that people are dangerous or the world is dangerous, then just having a stranger make conversation with me could be a stressor for me and might be enough for me to flip my lid. And so the first question is, where is the stressor coming from? What's going on? And then it's what to do about it. So there are specific things that can help when we're flipped, that can help us come back down. Because when that rational thinking part of the brain isn't on, then the talking and rationalizing just doesn't work. I'm sure many of you have tried to convince someone who's really agitated to settle down. Not super effective. So the things that you can do are things like self-soothing. Self-soothing is when you have skin-to-skin contact, so whether you take your own hand or wrist, some people will choose to touch their neck or their chest, but skin-to-skin contact, and you talk to yourself in a validating and reassuring way. Just like that, and you just pay attention to that feeling of your hand against your chest. One of the other strategies that can be very helpful is something called grounding, where you bring all of your attention and all of your five senses to one thing, like a stone or pick up some dirt or a leaf, and you can touch it and smell it and look at it. Grounding helps us get contained and come back to the present when our mind is going somewhere else. I hope this was helpful. As always, we would love to hear your feedback, so feel free to leave any comments or contact us through any of our social media.
Wow, that's a powerful video. Okay, so what happens when we get stressed? So I love the idea, I love her trigger about the dog, and I believe we all have our very own triggers. So one of mine, so when I was younger, I remember being shouted at by my grandparents when my sister dropped her plate And I have to recall this actually because I'm going to say about a month ago, Zach dropped his plate too. And I remember shouting his name, and straight away, I stopped myself because it reminded me of that day when my sister got shouted at, and both of us ended up in tears. I'm not sure why I was crying because it wasn't me who dropped the plate, and I wasn't being shouted at. But watching my sister cry, like when I think she was about, I want to say 4 or 5, and I'm 2 years older than her. But seeing her reaction and crying when she just accidentally dropped the plate, it's always stayed with me. So when Zach dropped that plate and I screamed his name, I brought myself back to the room. Thankfully, I mean, I say I was start off and flipped my lid, but then I got a hold of it, because it brought me back to, hold on a minute, wait. I've been here before, and it was my sister who dropped the lid, and shouting didn't give me anything. It just made me feel like scared, and I'm not bothered about that plate. That plate, I'm not bothered about. Don't worry about it. My worry was Zach picking up the pieces of that plate and cutting himself. So I kind of changed my tactic on that. So when she used that dog as an example, I get that and I really like that. It's just remembering to use it. So it kind of made me a little bit cheerful, a little bit that I didn't flip my lid completely when Zach dropped that plate. I managed to reel it in and explain to him that if he can just go back into his bedroom while Mummy cleans it up, because I don't want you to cut yourself. And it didn't go into a shouting, and the sobs, it didn't go out like how my sister and I were in tears. I was really scared. I was actually really scared that I didn't want to go back there. Not that they didn't hit us or anything, it's just shouting. And I have to admit, we're not a shouty family. I don't like shouting. Shouting reminds me of me just covering my ears up and not wanting to hear it. And we've all got different types of triggers we are reminded of when we're younger or now when you are older. So when you're parenting yourself, you remember back. So the question is, why were you triggered? What happens when you're stressed, and what we do about it moving forward. So I kind of relate to this video a lot actually about triggers and stuff because it's mad, but I love the idea of self-soothing and grounding. Can't say I ground. I don't really pick up pebbles, or I don't really grab a plant and start sniffing it, but that might be how you find things like soothe you. Self-soothing for me, I think I play with my hands a lot. I do a lot of rubbing, or I bite my nails, which is really bad, but I've not done that as much. But yeah, I suppose it's a question for Tracy when we next meet up is, other ways of you can like look at, I don't know, ways that you might be in. I don't know. It's a tough one, but I liked it. It's a good video and it's an eye-opener of just how to not flip your lid and have another strategy on what you can do before it reaches that point. If you have any questions or anything, comment below on the video. Please share, like, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Let's get the message out there and let's help parents on how to parent without a negative impact. So yeah, let's learn more about ACEs. This is really interesting, and I really am thankful that you're joining me in this journey. Thank you.